Hello, everyone. My name is Kieran. Welcome back to the channel. Another edition of the Newport County pre-match podcast. This time we've got Swindon away in League Two. I'm delighted to be joined by Ben today. How are you, man?
I'm good, Kieran. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolute pleasure, mate. So we'll go straight in and just start this off with what were your season expectations? Because you're doing pretty well under Michael Flynn at the minute.
Yeah, it was pretty unknown territory really with Flynn because we didn't really know the football that we were going to play under him because he had a bit of reputation of being a long ball merchant. And we didn't actually start wheeling dealing in the transfer business till really quite late. So we were actually a little bit concerned of which direction it was going. But he's done quite well so far in the transfer market. The loans have been good, fantastic loans. And the football's free flowing, attacking, aggressive. We play with overlapping centre backs. Sort of never seen that before. Really enjoyable to watch. So far, so good. Loving it.
Yeah, obviously Flynn kind of, you could say that he's a legend or an icon of sort of at Newport. He had his success there before moving on to Walsall. Didn't quite work out well there, but as of right now, you're ninth in League Two. You've played a game less than most of the teams in the league because of your postponement to, I believe it was Colchester on the opening day. Yep. 5 wins, 4 draws, 2 losses so far. Very respectable record. And other than that, you've recently had your game in the league as a 1-0 away defeat to Bradford. And I heard a lot of Swindon fans not be too happy about how that one went because you had the Notts game formally before that, and that also caused a bit of outroar and whatever else between the Swindon fan base. So how did you review those 2 defeats?
We went into the Notts County game quite confident because obviously we'd been unbeaten so far that season. We thought we'd give them a good game. And up to that point, no one had outplayed us. I think the points that we had dropped, obviously we were like 4-1 up against Wrexham by half time and 4-2 up, 5-3 up going into injury time. So you should have put that way. We gave a 2-goal lead away against Crewe, and we did the same to someone else whose name completely escapes me. And we threw the points away at Morecambe and me a goal up and down to 10 men. So, there was an argument that we could have gone to this game if we managed it a little bit better with still the 100% record. But the first half, we got smashed. I think we got pulled apart. I don't think we were quite ready. Maybe we went into the game a little bit arrogant, thinking that we could just turn up and out-football them. I think Luke Williams' teams are being former Swindon manager. We know what we're in for, and he's a fantastic footballing team. And they've got some really, really good players and good technicians on the ball, and they're just as good as we are going forward, if not better. The first 20, 25 minutes was a little bit carnage and the wheels came off a little bit. By the time we already started to get a grip of the game, within half an hour, we were already 3 down. Second half was a lot better. Overall, we limited them to 1 chance and we had quite a few of ourselves to get back in it. And wasn't for a few missed chances, we could have really pushed them to get back in the game and possibly nick something. But it wasn't to be. Overall, we deserved to lose. But the performance overall wasn't that bad, excluding the first half an hour where it was terrible. Bradford was a bit of another story though. That was 1-0 flattered us a little bit, and we started again on the front foot. But I think we suffered a little bit with Mark Hughes just getting sacked days before and not being very popular with the team or the fan base. The sort of shackles were off a little bit, and they were bang up for this one. And they grew into the game and they got a foothold. And though we missed some good chances to get back in the game, we didn't really deserve anything. And it was a bit disappointing the way we sort of limped out that game without really putting up a fight. So that was disappointing. But overall, the season's been brilliant. Can't complain. We're on track to have a serious challenge this year. So let's hope that's the case.
I mean, yeah, it looks like you could be in contention for a playoffs promotion around there, which I'm sure that's the aim you would have wanted going into the season, especially after going off the back end of a pretty rough season last time out. But you were talking about the Bradford game, saying that you had a few chances, but you couldn't have taken them. But of course, you've got a certain player on loan from Bradford. And you mentioned how your loans so far this season have been great. That being, of course, Jake Young. You've got Dan Kemp as well, in from MK Dons. I know you've briefly went over it, but what impact have they had? Because you've got Jake Young as one of the top scorers, if not the top scorer in the league. He won Player of the Month in August in the entire league, and then Dan Kemp's got himself 5 assists. It seems that your loan deals have probably been one of the better you've realistically ever seen in the history of this league so far, so to speak.
Well, I think, they're wonderful, apart from the fact they are loan, and they're loaned to 2 clubs who are also in this division. So Monday is going to be a bit of a worry. The impact of Young has been fantastic in front of goal. I think he didn't have quite a good relationship with Mark Hughes. Things weren't really worked for him at Bradford, and he was told just to go out and find some game time. He's still contracted for a couple of years at Bradford. So I'm to be quite honest, I'm fully expecting for him to get recalled. And if he carries on going the way he's going, he's going to have 20+ goals by January anyway. So I fully expect Bradford probably just sell him to a League One club anyway, as soon as they recall him, because, or maybe even better. He's got pretty much the lot. He's tall, he's strong, he's got pace. He's got confidence now. He's got an eye for goal. He's a clever player. He's got he's not just a finisher in the box. He's got a deceptive shot. As soon as you give him any sort of space outside the ball, he likes to have a little pop at goal with absolutely no backswing at all. So he's got that little attempt to come from nowhere, hit something from out the box. He's got all the attributes to be a really, really top EFL player, if he wants to be. But we've got until January. Hopefully he carries on doing what he's doing. And his goals will hopefully, because I'm fully expecting to get recalled, will have us in a good position where we can, much like it when you had Scott Twine, look to replace with some quality, because being in a good position, we're an attractive prospect for someone else to come in that sort of place. In terms of Kemp, out of the 2, he is the more vital one, because he plays that number 10 role. I haven't seen a better number 10 in this league. And I remember Jack Payne as well, who was class. He's back at MK Dons. No idea what's happened really with MK Dons and him. It's not really worked out. He's really been told he's surplus to requirements there, so hence why he's here. I think that he was bought initially by them to sort of back up Scott Twine, and he doesn't really fit their sort of game plan or the way they play. So I'm hopeful we can do some sort of deal there in January, and make sure that's a permanent. But he's got the ball stuck to his feet. He's got a wonderful left foot, but he can play with either. His vision's fantastic. He can pick a pass and he scores goals. He's got everything you need, and he carries the ball magnificently. And he loves teams that come to the county ground or come to the ground and try and pack the defence. He's actually got the ability to beat 2 or 3 players in its other box, to create opportunities for that space, to break these defensive teams down, which is a rare commodity at this level. So yeah, I think quite important that we do everything we can to help the stops. And I think that actually MK Dons may still owe us a little bit of money from the Scott Twine deal itself. So hopefully we can use that as leverage to make something permanent come January, but we'll have to wait and see. I'm sure there'll be interest from other clubs, so it's going to be squeaky bum time again.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds very much like a Michael Flynn kind of window. He did it at Newport. Yeah. He had these kind of low, not necessarily low budget, potentially in terms of you lot, but definitely in terms of Newport, we're a low budget team. He was able to work the loan market really well, and it seems he's starting to do something very, very good in terms of reputation, very good in terms of results at Swindon. And I know you went over it brief again, but yeah, Michael Flynn's a good manager, a good coach from my own personal opinions and my own thing, despite what he did at Walsall. Do you see him potentially being that manager to take you up because he's been so close to a Newport?
Oh, we adore him.
The one that can do it to you.
We absolutely adore him for all the setbacks it's from, because he came to Swindon really, and we were no great shakes with the squad. He's not been given a big budget. He is not, and the squad's relatively quite small. We've got a core of about 17 players who are really, really good. After then, it falls off a cliff. You know, we're into the youth academy players. We've really not got a big squad. We're going to have to make do with some players covering off of positions. What we have got is good, but it's minimum, which again, something that he's probably quite used to working with Newport. And we appreciate the miracle that he done. Actually, I was talking to someone today, and he took you over, you were dead and buried and considered already relegated. He managed to keep you up, and then the following season got you to a playoff final on the next to smallest budget of the year. And then he did it again the following year. I personally think he's a manager well above this level. He's shown that he's also he's not stuck to one sort of, you know, you got managers sort of like Ben Garner at Colchester who only plays one way, can only play one way. But as I say, at Newport, and I was talking to him before the Crawley game, and he's just saying, well, he's quite flexible because at Newport, the start of the season, you got it down, you played football and you played good football. But then obviously, because you share the rugby, when the pitch gets cut up, you change, you developed, and you went more long. And with us, he says, well, I've got a good team here. I've got team technical players who can play football. So if that's how I'm going to play, and, you know, we're best going forwards and playing forward. So I'm going to play ultra aggressive. I'm going to get bums in seats, and I'm going to play forward thinking football. And that's exactly what he's done. And it's true to his word. He's been quite frustrated in the transfer market. It is a bit inflated, getting players in. He's made no doubt that he wants to get more players in, and it's just not worked for him. There's lots and lots of players who've been linked to him. We've missed out on loads due to money. But he's just done a brilliant job, and he's improved the players that he's got as well. There's players that have actually stepped up a bit since he's been here. So it proves that he's a coach. So he shouldn't be at this level, to be perfectly honest. But we're lucky to have him. But I'm sure you quite agree with me.
Yeah, I've got a small amount of thing in my head there of just really glad that he's got this positive reputation at a different club now after what happened in jobs he had previous to you.
Well, the Walsall one was a bit head scratcher. Again, he did wonderful with the loans again, because he had obviously DJ and what's his name, Bennett, I think it was, at Walsall last year, and they were in and around the playoffs and did tremendously well. And then he got stung with the recalls, and I don't think he was back the way he should have been. And he was tied with a team that didn't really fit the way he wanted to do or what he wanted to do, and it just sort of went a bit bad for him. But not every job fits, not every job goes well. You know, if he was perfect at every time, then again he'd probably in the Premier League. But he reminds me a little bit of Richie Wellens, the sort of the man he is and the way he manages and his man management and the football he plays. And I think he could be every successful as Richie Wellens. Again, we're just both lucky to have a manager of that calibre at our club. But yeah, I think the Walsall thing was just a blip. I think end of the day, he would have been a success in the long run if they stuck by him and if they backed him. Obviously they backed Sadler quite healthily in the summer. If they did the same with Flynn, I'm pretty sure you'd see them in the top 7. But there you go.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that you play a forward-thinking football, an attacking football, so to speak, and it matches up with statistics pretty well. You're the joint second top-scoring team in the league. I believe it's only by 1 goal. Crewe, the only team to be in front of you by a goal being 28. I believe you've scored 27 in your opening 11 games or so. But you've also conceded 18, and
yeah,
you know, you had the harmful one against Bradford. You had the 5 against Wrexham, which is honestly probably going to be result of the season. That was an incredible game to watch.
Absolute freak, yeah.
Yeah, I never thought I'd see a game with that kind of scoreline. It's very rare. But you mentioned that you have a small squad and one that if there are injuries, if there are recalls of loans, is that going to be something that potentially affects you in your long run? Because you don't want to think too far because, you know, you've got the next game, then you think forward. But in terms of long term, are you kind of worried that the size of your squad and the mentioning of loans with that of potentially Kemp and Jake Young, are you worried that that could kind of cause you later on in the season to potentially have a dip in form or something along those lines?
Yeah, I'm kind of split really, because I really want January to happen now because we've got such a small squad on one hand. On the other hand, I don't want it ever to happen because we risk losing our two best players. Yeah, it was transfer deadline day was really frustrating because going into it, again, I spoke to Flynn himself about 10 days before the game, for the window, and he was going, I want about 3 or 4 players in. And we ended up getting none in, 0. It's not for the want of trying, and he said that himself. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's just because it's not trying. It's just he will not sign anyone that he doesn't think will improve where we need. So he won't sign anyone for the sake of it. He won't waste the money. But they've got to be at the right price, and if they're too much, he won't pay it. And he's quite stubborn with that. So that was it. And the budget's not the great. I wonder where, with our gates and with being quite a small squad as it is and not on that much, where the money's actually going. He's come out and said he's got a decent pot for January, because obviously we're about 4 players short than we want to be. So that's saving quite a bit a week. If you think 4 players, that's £2,000 a week for each one. That's is it £8,000 a week? That's 32 grand a month. If you times that by 4, it's 120 odd grand for the period that we're not spending on players. So it should be building up the kitty a little bit. We also sold one of our strikers, one of our biggest asset strikers, as I say, in Jake Wakelin, who was 4th choice, but was highly regarded around the EFL. He was nominated one of the Young EFL Players of the Year, and Peterborough sniffed and bought him like an hour before the end of deadline, and we didn't have enough time to fill the spot. They gave us a big deal that we couldn't refuse, really. So we still got that money still to spend. So there is money in January, which again can be hopefully be used on Kemp and a few others. So we can strengthen, but it's just hanging on in there until we've looked at signing out contract players. We've missed out on one that we really wanted and ended up going abroad. We've had other players in, but I think Flynn's torn, as in we are not in desperate straits now. I think we're carrying about 2 injuries in the squad, which is really quite lucky. So we're not in desperate straits to get someone in immediately. But, if he signs someone now, he's signing a stopgap, but someone that will do all right. That if he waits till January, then he can get someone he wants in, someone who can improve the squad, rather than someone that will just do. He doesn't really want to do that. So hopefully, he in his idea, he's got players training with us, but he'll only pull the trigger if he absolutely has to. So again, it's just a wait and see. I just hope that we stay fairly injury free and suspension free until January, and then we'll improve the squad and improve in places. And if we are to lose, Young, then so be it. And then hopefully, being in a top 7 position, we're a good enough catchment or a catch for someone else to come in with equal quality who can fill the spot, who can fill the space. But we'll see. As I say, we got great. We still got Charlie Austin up there. We still got Hepburn Murphy, who was a fantastic striker. But we could do with another striker, or at least 2, as well as Young until January. But we'll see. Anyway, long-winded answer is just we'll wait and see what happens.
Yeah, you mentioned that Flynn doesn't want to bring in players just for the sake of bringing players, and that could be like we've mentioned, working with a small budget with Newport. He knows how to save money. He knows how to spend it wisely. But it just brought up a little thought of mine. Whether you know too much about this is, I don't know at all. But what is the club like in terms of an off-pitch kind of thing, in terms of a revenue thing? So it definitely has potentially more attendance than Rodney Parade and all these things in between. So how's your club looking?
Well, we're averaging about 8,500, which is good gate for League Two. Fantastic gate for League Two. It's one of the better ones. The club itself, when the current owner took over, Clem Morfuni, we were going out of business. We were going bust. The previous owner, Lee Power, hadn't paid any tax or rent or anything on the place for 18 months. We were spiraling into nothingness. Clem took over. He settled up most of the debts. I think Lee Power laid a debenture on us that had to be paid up immediately 12 months ago. That of £3 million that completely crippled us, which needed to be settled. He gave us 3 days to pay it or put us in administration, and I think that's done us in a bit. And Clem had to sell some of his shares to cover and for the liquid assets to pay that up immediately. And I think he's paying that back, and I think that may have affected the budget a little bit this season. But as external debt goes, we're pretty much nearly free. The EFL COVID emergency loans are interest free and paid over a period of about 3 or 4 years. So there's no point in paying that off early. So we're just paying that monthly. But other than that, I think all the big debt that Lee Powers paid is gone. We have recently purchased the county ground, which was left to us in a will by a wealthy fan that passed. He left a few £1 million to the club to spend on infrastructure, not just like piss it away on players, but infrastructure in the club itself. So there's a joint venture that was made between Clem and the trust, which we purchased the county ground with, or the freehold, because we already own the stands. So we're in a good in that sort of sense. So we've got security there, and we're looking to redevelop the county ground, with plans to redevelop with the county ground with the trust, and that looking to get underway in about a year or so. We're going to put a roof on the bank, which is behind the goal. I think we're knocking the town end down, and we're going to build a hotel, bars and all that sort of thing, make it to one big mega stand, improve that a little bit, or put a few more executive boxes on in the Don Rogers, which is the bar stand. So we're looking to build up the infrastructure. So generally the club's in quite a good place. The fans are quite frustrated though, because at the moment we're not spending that much on a squad that has potential to quite finish in the top 3, but it's paper thin. So it's just like, if you just go that little bit extra, if you just every fan wants that little bit more money. Every fan just wants that 1 or 2 extra players. But it's frustrating to the fact that we've got about a squad of about 15 that could do something special, and as in top 3. But it could go wrong, because obviously, teams have like 7, 8, 9 injuries at one point during the mid-season. It happens, and teams get crippled. And if that happens to us, we're left with academy kids. We're playing 17-year-olds. And we're going to slide down that league. So we really do need this investment in January. Apparently there is a pot to spend, but that's Flynn that's saying that recently. But he's promised us signings that's never happened before. So some of the fans are a little bit impatient with that. So security-wise, the club's fine. It's in a good place. But the owner is quite tight with the budget, really tight.
Yeah, tight with the budget. Sounds very similar to how we are as of right now, but luckily we've been so far as what I know, we've agreed to sell a majority of the club to Hugh Jenkins, who used to do all these magic things with Swansea, put it that way. But we'll move away from that and kind of just to Saturday. Of course, this game is one that I'm usually pretty excited for before we go into the game, because, I mean, before Forest Green came down, it's the closest away day that we definitely have. So, yeah, what predictions do you have going into it? How would you...
You're a bit of an enigma, aren't you? You're Newport this year, aren't they? At the start of the season, I thought you were in trouble. I thought you were bang in trouble, because all your established players were leaving in their droves. And I was thinking, you've obviously... You announced losses of millions. You've not got the largest fan base. You've not got much to fall back on. And, all these players were leaving. I thought, you're bang in trouble. I thought you'd really struggle this year. So credit to you. I don't think you'll be anywhere near problem and that bottom end. And you've actually surprised a few, and you are a bit of an enigma, because you have pulled results away. You've taken some stuff-ins, but you've also surprised a few and beaten a few and got a few scalps yourself. So I'm not going to walk into it going, we're just going to knock you over and do what we've done to many other teams. And, we've only dropped points at 1 home game this season and we're going to smash you. I'm not going to say that, because I think that you are capable of pulling up a shock. And, if the first 15 minutes goes and you nick a 2-goal lead, then I think we'll be in, you've got something to defend, and I think we're in trouble. But I will back my team. We will create chances. You can see goals as well, score. And you've got Charlie Austin, you've got Young, and then you've got Kemp as a front three. And again, I don't think there's a team that have a better front three than them. Not to count Pushers, but I think that's close to as good as. So if you can keep them down to 0 or 1 goal, then you've got a chance to coming away with a point, maybe even 3. But you've got a job on, and I think there's going to be times that you're going to have to live on your nerves a bit. But if you frustrate the fans, if you can get 60 minutes and we've not scores, the fans could turn on the home fans a little bit. If you nick a set play, you get something going your way, then you might come away with something, 3. You've done it to us before a couple of years ago when we were playoff hunting, when you beat us 1-0. Was it last year or the year before? I think it was the year before, actually, wasn't it? You beat us 1-0. Towards back end of the season. We thought you ended our playoff hopes then. Luckily, we got the big run to get in. But so you're not going to be easily to push over. But I'm hopeful that we can get the 3. We really need to after 2 defeats. It's important that we bounce back for us, our point of view.
I mean, yeah, it's important that we pull off a result because, like a lot of people said, like you said just then, when you look at before the season, we are one of the teams that, when you look at potential infrastructure, when you look at budgets, the partners we had, Norman, Dimitri, Ferguson, Aaron Lewis, just to name a few of them, you would have probably pretty respectably put us to go down, or at least be towards that bottom end of the table. But more going into it now, I kind of agree with you that I don't think we'll be in any trouble. I don't really necessarily think we'll be up there with the teams in playoffs, because this League Two, like I've said so many times, and like I've heard so many other people say so many times, it's a League Two that is probably the most exciting we've had in a good few years. I didn't love League Two in terms of the quality of teams last year. I understand that there were a few good ones, but going into this season, you could probably put 14, 15 teams to kind of be in and around the playoff positions or promotion race. I wouldn't put us to be relegation candidates, but I also wouldn't put us to be that team to beat. But like you've said, we're one of those teams that we can pull off results. We can do kind of work of magic, and we can pull off these upsets, and we've done it before. You wouldn't have put us probably to go into playoffs the seasons that we did, or whatever cup runs we've had, or some of the results we've had this year, getting 3 goals within 30 minutes to Doncaster. If we could do this, if we could do similar against you guys, I would not complain at all. Like you mentioned, if we can score early, then we can definitely kill off the game. Equally, if we can cause frustration to your fan base by realistically all sitting back for the most part, and kind of just allowing you to throw whatever at us and hold it for that time, we could pull off something on Saturday. But I always say, I said it for the Forest Green game away, I say with away games, if you can get a point in an away game, it's a point gained. If you want to get all your 3 points, it's one thing that, you want to do it at home. So I'm sure if you look at it odds-wise, if you look at it structure-wise, you're definitely going to be the favourites going into this. We're running with, I think, like 5 injuries going off the top of my head. So that doesn't help either. Good big-name players, ones that normally would be in our starting lineup. We've got players that are recently coming back from injury, or we had our game against Salford, or our game against Harrogate recently, rather, where we had certain players pick up knocks, and we haven't really heard too much about it. We are definitely one of the teams that are being affected by injuries. But in terms of this game, I'm gonna, I guess, stay on the fence. I will say a draw, but I'm gonna say 2-2. I can see definite goals in this one.
Yeah, I can see goals both ends. To be fair, if you come and go at us, if you try and beat us, there'll be goals both ends.
Yeah, I think every single game so far this season we've scored in. So it's one thing where I can pretty certainly say that we're going to score. But with you having the second best goal scoring record in the league, I understand predictions are nonsense at times, because you're not going to be able to really judge a game unless it's on the field. That's the only time you can really judge what's happening. But I'm going to say 2-2. I can't see a world in where we don't score, but I also can't see a world where you don't score. So that's my thought process going into it.
Yeah, no, well, the same as you. I think we do concede chances. So I think if your manager recognises that with, as I say, we play with overlapping centre-backs. Our centre-backs, we have two of them. One's, they both easily could be wingers. That they both push up. They both get involved with attacks. And they both stay there, even even if the attack breaks down, they still hold the position, and one of the central midfielders come and drop back in the position to help Brewitt out. But there's always that scope to have a break on and have bodies on the break if you do it. So I think the temptation to leave a man or two up would be quite high. And if you fancy yourselves to score goals, you might fancy to come down and just have an outright slugfest and try and outbox us. I don't know what your manager's like, but yeah. So if you are quite attacking, I think it could finish anything. I think Swindon will win. I think we'll win by a couple. If you come down and have a go, I think we'll win 4-2. If you're a little bit more reserved, I'm going 3-1. But that's the assumption that we score first. If you score first, I think things will get quite tense, especially after the last two results, because Swindon fans do have a habit of anxiety. And they don't like it when things don't go well. They can turn quite quickly. So if we score first, I'm quite confident. But yeah, we do need the first one.
Yeah, there's quite a few fans in this league that I've seen where if you're conceding first, you could have fans get on your back. And I suppose in terms of social media, we're one of the fan bases where at times it can get quite ugly if you're conceding first. But yeah, unless you have anything else you want to say just about Swindon or about this fixture, I think that's about it really from me in terms of points.
Yeah, no, it promises to be a good game. I hope you do come and have a go, just for the sake of the game anyway. And it's always good to watch when teams attack us because, it's all a bit dull when teams come with five at the back and one up front and four in midfield. It's all a bit dull. But so hopefully it's a good game. I wish you all the best the rest of the season after Saturday. And thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. If you want to just promote any form of social medias, I know.
Yeah, as I say, any Newport fans that are watching on Friday evening, I'm in the Fools Rush In podcast. There's a few of us. We'll be discussing, if you want to laugh, the heavy defeat on Reading on Tuesday and the meltdown from that, and thoughts on this weekend on Saturday. We're on YouTube. We start at 9 o'clock. Obviously, we'll be previewing the game, so it'll be a good interest to see what Swindon fans' point of view is and what we're thinking of the game up front. So if you do fancy it, tune in, 9 o'clock, Fools Rush In on YouTube, and it will also be on other outlets as well if you want to have a listen to Anchor and Spotify and all that, iTunes and all that malarkey. Fools Rush In.
Yeah, I'll make sure to put it all in the description. So yeah, thank you for taking your time out of your day to just talk about this game. I should have it up realistically about 8 o'clock because there's no real need to edit these too much. So it's good fun.
Cool.
So yeah, if you've enjoyed this talk, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. I really do appreciate it. Thank you, like I said, to Ben for taking his time out of his day to just talk about this game and just talk about Swindon. It's really interesting to see what kind of the stature of both of these clubs, what you were going through, years ago before you got this kind of takeover. Sounds very similar to the news we had before the season started. So it's very interesting to see all of that stuff. So yeah, Sport Channel, whatever way you see fit, using the links in the description. Of course, the link to the Fools Rush In podcast, the YouTube, whatever else will also be in there as well. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, whenever you're watching this. I'm hoping I'm going to come back on here and be talking about a successful day in Swindon. So yeah, take care.